Okay. Welcome to the Daily Mail editorial board meeting with the 3rd Congressional District candidates. We have State Senator Evan Jenkins of Cabell County. Apparently Democratic Congressman Nick Joe Rahal has declined our invitation to be here, which is fine. We're going to Senator Jenkins will introduce himself and then we'll ask questions and he'll answer them. And first of all, welcome Senator Jenkins. We appreciate you taking the time from your campaign to be here today.
We appreciate
I'm Don Silver, editorial writer.
I'm Kelly Merritt, editorial page editor.
Philip Maramba, the managing editor.
Good to see you.
I'm Brian McElhenney, the editor, and I would echo Don's welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Brian.
And Jared, I'm business editor / interim state house.
Great. Thanks, Jared. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it very much, and I welcome the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you today talking about the race for the 3rd Congressional District. This is 18 counties in southern West Virginia, ranging from Mason County just north of Cabell County and looping to the south and going all the way up to Pocahontas County and the good folks in the town of Durbin right there at the northern part of Pocahontas County. The 3rd Congressional District has had the same representation for the last 38 years, and I think it's time for a change. I think our country, by the policies coming out of Washington in the last number of years, in particular, have made it perfectly clear that Washington is broken. The agenda being advanced by Obama and Pelosi and Reid and folks that are helping their agenda like Nick Rahal are wrong for our country and wrong for West Virginia. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself and my background. Born and raised in West Virginia. I'm married. I have 3 children from middle school to college. I worked professionally after college as an attorney with the firm of Jenkins and Finstamaker in Huntington, and then after that became counsel to the State Chamber of Commerce in 1992 and continued in that capacity until 1999. And then in 1999 was offered the position and had the opportunity to become the executive director of the West Virginia State Medical Association. That's an organization that advocates for a better healthcare environment in West Virginia, improvement in the health of West Virginia, and it's actually an organization that was founded in 1867, so it's been around a long time. And I continue as the executive director of the State Medical Association today. In public service, in 1994, I ran for and was elected to the West Virginia House of Delegates and served in the House 3 terms from 1994 to 2000. And then in 2002, I ran for the state Senate. And the voters of Cabell and Wayne counties gave me the opportunity to serve them in the state Senate. And I'm completing my 3rd term in the state Senate. That's 12 years, and my term ends at the end of this year when a new person from the 5th Senatorial District is elected representing Cabell and Wayne. I've lived my life in Cabell and Wayne. Went off to school and but came home and married a Huntington girl, and our 2 children that are still in public schools in Huntington with the oldest son off at college. I look forward to talking to you today about the important issues impacting our state, impacting our future. But again, let me maybe summarize very briefly why I'm running for Congress in this decision this past summer. Yes, I served the years as a member of the Democratic Party in the West Virginia legislature, but it became abundantly clear to me that the policies of President Obama, the support for an agenda from Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and Nick Rahal, as I said a moment ago, are wrong for our country and certainly devastating to our state. And when President Obama talks about a core agenda of his party being for amnesty and immigration, restrictions on Second Amendment rights to control access to guns, an environmental policy that is absolutely devastating to our coal industry, and big government takeover of health care through Obamacare and other efforts, it's something that I simply could not, would not, will not be a part of. I have seen the Democratic Party drift at a very fast pace left. You know, President Reagan once said he didn't leave the party left him. And I feel those words. And we see it happening so clearly in Washington. So yes, I changed my party because I wanted to stand up and fight tooth and nail against the agenda that is so wrong for our state. And unfortunately, we have a member of Congress representing the 3rd Congressional District that has been there when we have lost 43% of our coal jobs, and he has been supportive of the Obama, Pelosi war on coal agenda. So I'm running to be a new voice for West Virginia, to be a fighter for our coal miners and our coal communities and our coal jobs, a fighter for the rights we believe in, and we are going to make a change, and we're going to stand up to Barack Obama and this left running agenda that is so wrong for West Virginia. So I look forward to your questions, and again, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Senator, the National Democrats and Nick Rahal are spending millions of dollars on TV ads saying that you oppose black lung benefits. It's complicated, but that's basically what their message is. The Washington Post gave the National Democratic Party 3 out of 4 Pinocchios when it fact-checked. And it gave Rahal all 4. It said that he put words in your mouth and then bashed you for saying it. But it raises a question. What is your position on black lung benefits? And what do you want to do? There has been some companies say that people are getting black lung benefits who don't deserve it. And then others saying that the companies are manipulating the requirements for black lung. Just what is your position on black lung? What do you want to do about it?
Sure. Number one, black lung is a horrific disease. We have a duty, a responsibility to take care of our miners, to take care of our retirees, and take care of the widows. It is a devastating disease, and I am a staunch supporter of every benefit, every opportunity for coverage to take care of our miners, their families, and their widows. So let me be perfectly clear. I will fight tooth and nail to protect black lung. Now, you said it was maybe a little bit complicated. This actually, I don't think, is very complicated. In 1981, Nick Rahal voted for a bill that basically gutted the black lung program. This vote in 1981 was described by a UMWA official as the worst vote for coal miners in their history. And Nick Rahal voted for it, and it changed the eligibility criteria for black lung. Well, the Byrd Amendment to Obamacare restored some of the eligibility criteria, and that amendment is in Obamacare. I support that amendment. In any form of health care reform moving forward, I will make sure that we protect good eligibility criteria like in the Byrd Amendment. The absolutely frustrating thing about this, and you are right on target, that I have been attacked simply because I've been critical of Obamacare. I have never said anything critical of black lung benefits. In fact, just the opposite. So the only basis from which they are criticizing me for black lung is because I've criticized Obamacare, not black lung. So here's the frustrating thing. Target. All the independent fact checkers have said this attack on me is bogus, they're lies, gross misrepresentations. As a matter of fact, Nick Rahal himself is paying to run an ad where he puts a gentleman on camera and says that he's frustrated to no end when he, quote, hears me talk about taking away black lung, words to that. Well, that gentleman has never heard that because I've never said it. And Time magazine in the last 2 or 3 days gave Nick Rahal a pretty damning award and said that that ad was one of the 5 most dishonest ads of the entire election cycle in the entire country. You know, there's nothing wrong with spirited debate. Let's talk about black lung. Let's talk about protecting our minors. But when you pay to have somebody do an ad and say something that never occurred, because that gentleman never heard me say anything critical of black lung, that's way over the line. Fortunately, the truth has been told, but the idea that Nick Rahal is running a campaign on what all independent checkers say is a bold-faced lie to try to get a vote to protect his 38-year incumbency is a sad way and such a travesty to the integrity of the voters of West Virginia.
Well, we're kind of touched on this subject. Since you're executive director of the State Medical Association, so obviously you've worked for the Medical Association since '99. So obviously, as such, you're a big supporter of the Affordable Care Act, correct?
I am not. Obamacare was the wrong way to reform our healthcare system. Healthcare reform is needed. Our healthcare system is broken, and we could have a lengthy discussion because it is my passion. I start off at a ground zero belief that we need to protect and preserve the doctor-patient relationship. We must keep patients empowered to be able to be in control of their healthcare decisions. Now, a lot of work is needed to try to bring some transparency to the healthcare system so patients are better armed with information so they can make better decisions. But Obamacare was wrong for our country on a number of fronts. The idea that big government is going to say, we are going to mandate that you have to buy a product, in this case, health insurance. And number 2, not only are we going to tell you you have to buy it, we're then going to turn around and tell you exactly what's in it, the essential benefit package, the 10 elements. And it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, young or old, it was government telling you what had to be in the insurance that you were going to have to pay for. And the third element is not only do you have to buy it, not only does the government tell you what it is you're going to have to buy, they're going to turn around and fine you if you don't buy it. And that is just the epitome of big government overreach getting into our lives. Now, we can talk a lot about the negative consequences. This campaign, visiting with small business people who are on that 50 employee edge, where they know if they hire that 48th, 49th, 50th person, it's going to trigger all the employer mandates. and they are just saying no. We're going to draw a line. What a tragedy that somebody misses out on a job because of an employer mandate. The issue of the 30 hours, and we know the fact that employers are taking part-time workers or even full-time workers and moving them to part-time status. What a tragedy. We know that the number one demographic that had the highest increase in their premiums as a result of Obamacare were women age 55 to 65. They are holding and shouldered with the greatest premium increase as government decides who are the winners and losers. And I think that's a tragedy. So we could go on and on at the negative things, and of course there's a lot of aspects of Obamacare that we know because in modifications that Obama and the HHS Secretary have initiated without congressional approval, clearly going over the line and changing the law to fit their own political agenda. There's a lot of negative stuff that hasn't even kicked in. But let's talk about health care reform. You know, I'm the guy who led the charge to make sure that autism spectrum disorder was a covered benefit by insurance policies in West Virginia. I am a guy who has supported allowing young people to stay on their parents up to age, I think we were 24 or 25. That was already in place in West Virginia before Obamacare. We have had, has to be closed down because of Obamacare, we had a program called Access West Virginia, which was premium controlled, and it provided coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. I think the states are the best incubators to address healthcare reform. We were already doing a number of things that people talk about are popular in the ACA. The ACA didn't bring those to West Virginia. We were already doing that. So there is just a fundamental big government concept. And let's not forget the broken promises that were made and the way that Obamacare was sold. Was it 2012? The lie of the year was Obama saying, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. And you know, Nick Ray Hall parroted that exact same message. If you like policy or something close to that. And then, incredibly, just last year, Nick Ray Hall went on the radio and asked, when we had all the wave of policy cancellations last year, he said, you know what, maybe those people are having their policies canceled. It may be in their best interest. So this is just a wrong big government attitude. So healthcare needs to be reformed. You know, your paper talked about some good ideas this morning. So you know, there are good market ways to address healthcare reform. We can do it right. We don't need to do it the way they did.
Joe Manchin is no labels, but I saw him on a Ray Hall ad this morning. Does that bug you? And if you're elected to Congress, would you have a fine working relationship with?
Well, I have a good working relationship with Joe Manchin. And Joe Manchin actually said in the press here within the last couple of months, you know, I can't say anything bad about Evan Jenkins. And I actually happened to see him the night that he had filmed that commercial, and I was aware that he had filmed it. And he smiled and he chuckled, and he again said, you know, Evan, I can't, I won't, I would never say anything bad about you. We do have a good working relationship. This is politics. This is, ironically, a 38-year incumbent in Nick Ray Hall, who is, at this point, 26, 27 days out, relying on a first-term member of the Senate to vouch for him. Nick Ray Hall ought to be in a position to stand up for himself. He's got a 38-year record. He knows his polling, shows, and our polling, and everybody knows that the people of West Virginia are ready for a change. And he is pulling out every stop he can and calling every political chip in. But the problem is, with Nick Ray Hall back in Congress, the very first vote he will cast will be for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. And the first vote that Natalie Tennant will cast is for a Harry Reid for Majority Leader of the Senate. So, Joe Manchin cutting an ad saying he likes Nick Joe Ray Hall is just politics. He's carrying the Democratic banner, and but I think it's very telling that Senator Manchin has said repeatedly, and he has. I have worked with him when he was governor, when he was a member of the legislature, and I think he respects the work I have done as a legislator.
In the 3 congressional races and a Senate race, everybody's for coal, everybody is against the EPA. Okay, we get that. The district that you're going to represent includes some of the poorest counties in the nation. Coal's going to be going for the next 200 years. There's plenty of coal left. They're mining it. They mined it at records levels early in this century. What sort of post-coal economy, besides selling drugs, do you see for your district, and what will you try to do to facilitate a post-coal economy for them?
Sure. It is critically important, and I'm going to answer your question. But when you talk about the future, how to bring jobs, you talk about post-mine land use issues, there is always a worry and a perception, has this person given up on coal? So I want to start off by saying very clearly, I think coal has a real future in West Virginia. And yes, we have reserves that will last a very long time. And this in no way should be giving up on coal and only talking about something different. So I want to be perfectly clear. I will not turn my back on coal. I have not given up on coal. I believe coal has a very important, good, and robust future. Southern West Virginia does need to build on a robust coal industry. Throughout this campaign, let's just talk about all the ancillary jobs just that coal provides. And it's questionable. Is it 5 jobs spent off for each coal job, or up to 11 is as high as I have? We've lost 43% of our coal jobs in the last 6 years. So it is devastating, not just to the coal employment, but other ancillary jobs. But we know the foundations of a good economy in southern West Virginia, in addition to coal, is we need a transportation infrastructure that allows goods to market, access to populations. And we all know about the goals of one night's drive from southern West Virginia to about 50-60% of the population. I don't think Nick Ray Hall has gotten the job done. In fact, I know he's not gotten the job done with regard to transportation. I'm up in the Cabell County, Wayne County area. We've got issues of Route 2, Route 10, Tulsa Highway. We've got the Route 35 connector that's stalled. Nick Ray Hall talks a good game about his position on the transportation. But he hasn't gotten the job done. We've gotten the little segments here and there. Mercer County, the bridge to nowhere, 5-6 years idle. Just announced that they're going to be able to, in the next 5 or 6 years, potentially get 1 mile added to that. Simply unacceptable. You've got the Buffalo Mountain project on King Coal Highway that the EPA held up the permit on back in 2009. It's still being held up. We need to shake that permit loose because that project that Consol is ready to mine and leave the roadbed and give us a critical section of the King Coal Highway, not a penny of state tax dollars going in to it for the project and the portion that. So number one, Don, is transportation. We need to start getting the roads built and the road projects completed that have been stalled. Number two, I was the original sponsor, along with a couple other members of the House of Delegates, that created the Hatfields and McCoy Trail system. So we've got real tourism opportunities in southern West Virginia. I worked with the Boy Scouts and their representative, Steve McGowan, on the legislation to create opportunities when it came to licensing healthcare officials, tweaking our education laws to make sure that the Summit Bechtel project was a go in West Virginia, a huge stimulus. You get over in the eastern part and look at Pocahontas County, work your way down into Greenbrier County and Monroe County. You know, lots of agriculture, a lot of tourism. What the EPA is doing on this ditch rule, trying to put every puddle of water, claiming it as a navigable river and want to regulate it, that's devastating to our farmers. So we need to grow the economy. We need to build on coal. We need to focus on transportation. We need to enhance our tourism capability. We've got hardworking people with a tragically high unemployment rate. And we do need job training. We do need to invest in issues of job readiness, skill transfers. But I tell you, people of southern West Virginia are so devastated by this DC onslaught to what they do, how they want to live, that it's very frustrating.
You talk about bringing up some very important needs, transportation infrastructure. Of course, infrastructure is not cheap, and we're looking at running for a job that would be one of those responsible for that $17 trillion deficit. So, I mean, how do you address the two, building better infrastructure and also handling?
Yeah, sure. A couple of things. Number one, and I applaud Congresswoman Capito. She has laid out a financing plan to allow for some more oil and gas exploration and the ability around our country to generate revenue to go into the Highway Trust Fund to allow us to actually fund a full reauthorization with investment. You know, this thing has been sucking on fumes the last number of years. Again, this ranking member status, supposedly, of all this power, hadn't gotten the job done, and that we've had projects around West Virginia stalled as a result of a dysfunctional Washington. So we do need a highway bill, and we need to make sure we have the projects. You know, if elected, I will be a member of the Majority Caucus. I will be working with the Speaker of the House and the chairs of all the relevant committees. You've got people like Kevin McCarthy, who is the new majority leader, that has only been in Congress about 8 years, 6-8 years. It doesn't take 38 years to build seniority. Let me give you an example. Look at the stimulus package. I think probably a great way to kind of analyze political muscle. Nick Rahal, today 38 years, 3 congressional districts. 2009, the big mega $800 billion stimulus package, ready to put America back to work, shovel-ready projects. Well, guess what? West Virginia 3 got $100 million of stimulus money less than West Virginia 1, the 1st Congressional District. West Virginia 3 got $1 billion less than West Virginia 2. So if we want to talk about getting the job done, and remember in 2009, the Democrats were in complete control. So Nick Rahal can't point fingers, well, you know, it was the Speaker of the other party or something. No. Democrats in complete control, the chair of a committee, I assume, didn't get the job done.
In this post-coal economy,
Which there's not. I won't. I'm not going to get concede for 1 minute that there's a post-coal. I am 100% pro.
we have a growing natural gas with the Marcellus Shale.
Yes.
What from DC can we expect to help grow this industry here?
You know, as a member of the legislature for a few years, I have seen, candidly, the power base of the Speaker of the House and the Senate President heading north. It was an outrage to me recently when I heard our legislative leaders of the state level talk about a focus all on oil and gas and basically threw coal under the bus. And so my, number one, I think hopefully Southern West Virginians need to realize that a lot of focus. I am very supportive and helped on the legislation that addressed putting the hopefully the right economic development and environmental protections in place for our shale gas industry. I am excited about the potential and what is happening. The idea that we get a cracker plant where we can have the spin-off manufacturing, this is awesome for our future. The problem is that all of those northern thoughts are saying that's where the opportunity is, and they're forgetting about the potential we still have. What I'd really like to see is have the coal and the oil and gas, 1 and 1 equal 3. And unfortunately, we've got a mindset that some up north are so excited about their 1 that if we lose this 1 minus 1 is 0. I don't like that math. And that's unacceptable. And yes, that's the incredibly exciting aspect that I have for West Virginia, in that we're an energy state. We are in all of the above energy attitude. Let's use coal. Let's use oil and gas. Let's lead the way. We can lead the way of energy independence. But when you go through southern West Virginia and you see mine equipment, I'm glad for the manufacturing and the jobs associated, like at J.H. Fletcher. Visiting with them in my district, they manufacture heavy mining equipment. They send it all over the world. And you can walk through their shop floor and say, that piece of equipment is going to China. That piece of equipment, those are good jobs. But you know what they say? The demand for that equipment is being reduced, as not as great as it once was. Wouldn't it be great if, just hypothetically, they'd be building 10 pieces of equipment instead of 5? They're building a lot of that, but it's, we unfortunately we've got this attitude But no, we can't. The shale gas is a unique moment in time, and we have to maximize our potential from that. But we absolutely can't give up and say that's the new coal of our economic future. We should be rallying for both.
I don't remember how long ago it was, a year ago, a few months ago, you got some criticism among some for switching parties. Me being, I was not in this business, but I've always followed the legislature. I was, been aware of you in the legislature for some time, although I never focused. My first thought was, he's switching Republican. I thought he was a Republican. So my question is, what were you doing a Democrat in the first place?
Well, you were talking about Joe Manchin just a little while ago. There was over a number of years, we know there's a lot of people who are conservatives. And we've got this generational history that goes back to the 30s and the FDR era, where, granddaddy was a Democrat, daddy was a Democrat, so when they turn 18, they register as a Democrat. What has happened is we have these core values and these core beliefs. We just such a staunch defender in the Second Amendment. We want government out of our lives. We recognize a role for government in providing a safety net. It's a very important protections for our environment. But the challenge is that the Democratic agenda in Washington these last 6 years has become abundantly clear. And as I said earlier, you cannot sit by and be a conservative, and I challenge those who are even moderates if they are a Democrat, to say, look at Washington, look what they are doing. I am a believer that you can solve a lot of problems with a good job. Let's create a climate where employers want to actually grow and invest in more jobs. Let's attract businesses. Let's help our existing businesses grow. You mentioned the drug issue. We've got a drug crisis that is at an epidemic level. And again, I've got a long history. I've passed 4 or 5 bills that I'm the lead sponsor of, tackling the prescription drug crisis in West Virginia. I cut the ribbon on a new facility that I'm the president of the board of in Huntington to take care of newborn infants that were drug exposed during pregnancy, Lily's Place. I passed the law that mandated that these big box retail pharmacy have to have internet access in the pharmacy for the pharmacist to be able to access the controlled substance monitoring program. I've passed the bill that closed a loophole for pill mills, doctors to dodge the law, but I also have a law to give prosecutors new authorities to make sure that those who are doctor shopping aren't crossing the line. So we're tackling that issue in a big way. But back to your real question of why change. I simply could not, would not sit idly by. I can't be a part of a party whose agenda is so wrong for our state. I'm the guy that's been the lead sponsor of the Jobs Impact Statement in West Virginia. It hasn't passed, and I'm frustrated about that because we've got Democratic control that said, no, we aren't willing to allow for a good analysis of the economic impact that policies would have on jobs. We have fiscal notes. We wave those around and say, well, we can or can't pass this bill because a fiscal note says it will cost this much. It was back in the 90s when I introduced the jobs impact that said the same concept. Why don't we as legislators have good analysis of whether a public policy piece of legislation would actually create or hurt jobs. You know, every legislator says they're pro-jobs, but I tell you, when you start seeing some of the legislation that some are advancing, and you take to the floor and say, well, that would be bad for jobs, and they jump up and say, oh, no, it won't. Let's get some independent analysis into the process. It would help the debate. So I'm about jobs. I am I was ranked the #1 pro-jobs legislator of all 134 members of the West Virginia legislature. We've addressed the workers' comp when we mutualized that. Remember, the structure for that mutualization came as a result of when we led the effort to save our healthcare system. Right here in Charleston, when CAMC back in 2001, 2002 had to start life flighting people out because their trauma designation was reduced, that was unacceptable. And we saved healthcare in West Virginia. But we used that as a model for the workers' comp program. So, you know, it's about growing our economy. It's about having policies in place that enable us to grow jobs here. That solves a lot of problems, and that's why it's so frustrating of Washington. And to have this president go on TV and give speeches in the last week talking about how great this economy is. He ought to talk to the people of southern West Virginia. He ought to go up there like I did and talk to the miners at Alpha who have a WARN notice in their hand. The 165 that went to work 2 weeks ago on a Friday, and the initial WARN notice took effect on Monday and were put out of a job. And we've got now 650 miners on a second WARN notice that are in a situation that right the week of Thanksgiving, Obama and Nick Rahal to go talk to them and see how great they think the economy is going.
I think we're just about done with our time unless we have a quick one. One thing that was on my mind was you were elected to the legislature in 1993.
In 1994 election. Took
and
office in
95. Okay. And then Senate starting in 2002.
Elected in 2002 and started the first session is 2003.
So you've served a long time in the legislature. You mentioned your opponent's 38 years in the House. I'm just wondering why you waited until now to run for this office.
Well, yeah, you know, we all are think about. I have been honored to represent Cabell and Wayne County for the 18 years. We've done a lot of good. I could run through the list of successes and accomplishments. But every person who's in public service thinks about how best they can serve. And again, it's been a number of years as I have seen these policies being so wrong for our state. That this past summer I said, absolutely, I've got to do something. I believe firmly that the only check and balance we've got to this administration, this EPA, to Nancy Pelosi, is to make sure we have somebody who will not vote for Nancy Pelosi, somebody who will stand up to Barack Obama, somebody who will fight the EPA. Nick Rahal is 6 for 6 in voting for Nancy Pelosi. 2003, 2005, 2007, 2009, 2011, 2013. Give him a chance in 2015 to vote for Nancy Pelosi. I don't want that to happen. And I want to give the voters of Southern West Virginia in the 3rd Congressional District a chance to vote for somebody who won't. I want the voters of Southern West Virginia who believe as I do that we don't need somebody who defends the actions of the EPA in holding up our coal permits. I don't want West Virginia to have somebody go who votes for a carbon tax, as Nick Joe Rahal did last year in voting for the progressive budget. I could go on because I just think he has clearly signed up lock, stock, and barrel as a foot soldier, despite what he comes back to the district and says. Let me give you an example, because he loves to talk about how he's not for a carbon tax, and he's introduced legislation opposing a carbon tax. Well, in March of 2013, he voted for the progressive budget that had a $25 a ton carbon tax in it. He woke up or heard about what an outrageous vote that was, and a week or two later, he introduced a no carbon tax bill. I don't think, last time I checked, that bill does not have a single co-sponsor. It's never gone anywhere. It won't go anywhere. And he likes to go around and say he's against a carbon tax. Well, he voted for a carbon tax. But 38 years has given him a pretty sneaky way to cover his tracks. And that's why I am running for a better future of West Virginia, and somebody who will represent the interests of West Virginia and our hardworking coal miners and our hardworking families, not the interests of Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama.
Well, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for your interest. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.